You have joined the new board member orientation tonight with the City of Longmont. We thank you for being here, sharing your personal time with us so we can share some information with you. I have three colleagues with me tonight here to present to you. Our presentation will be broken up sort of into four sections. We'll give you a chance to ask some questions after each section. I did want to take just a moment first and introduce my colleagues to you. We have Eugene May, City Attorney. We also have Rigo Leal, our Public Information Officer, and then Francie Jaffe, our Water Sustainability Conservation Specialist. These fine colleagues of mine will help us give you an orientation about serving as a board member with the City of Longmont. All right, so let me put this on presentation mode. So, board orientation for new advisory board, committee, and commission members. First of all, and most importantly, we want to just welcome you to this important role you have decided to undertake or to re-undertake for some of you maybe who are being reappointed to serve in your position. And we really want to thank you for choosing public service. It's a very rewarding opportunity, and we hope that you'll find it to be so as well. So with that, again, my colleagues tonight are myself, Don Quintana, the city clerk. I'm going to cover a broad overview of the City of Longmont government, and we'll talk broadly about boards and board members and board meetings. We'll dabble in some parliamentary procedure. Then I'll turn it over to Eugene, the city attorney, who's going to talk about the good legal stuff with you, ethics and open meetings and those conflicts of interest, all that good meaty stuff. Rigo will be next. He'll talk to you about media relations and what to do when, if contacted by the media. And last, we will wrap up with Francie Jaffe. This is a new piece in our board orientation to talk about how to make boards more inclusive and what is your role in that. So that's our plan for tonight. You were each emailed the manual. We're going to follow that manual, but we're not going to walk through it page by page. Feel free to read that at your leisure. There's a lot of information in there. We'd be here for too long if we went through it bit by bit. So don't want to keep you that long. So let's get rolling on your local government, the City of Longmont. Let me pull up. So Longmont, this is your city council. Longmont was formed in 1871. We celebrate our 150th birthday this year. There's going to be quite a few celebrations coming. And we are a home rule municipality. We're not under statutory authority. We're home rule. And our city charter was adopted in August of 1961. We do follow the council manager form of government. Before you on the screen is our current city council. We do have a council election this November, so this will change after November. This is how the city is organized in a very broad, and recognize that's a small chart for you all to look at. But our city manager is Harold Dominguez, and I mentioned our government is a council manager form of government. What that means is, and you can see in our small org chart here, that the residents of Longmont elect the city council hires the city manager, and then the city manager runs the city. He is the CEO, if you will, of the City of Longmont. Council also directly hires two other employees, the city attorney, so Eugene, who's with us tonight, and then the municipal judge, Judge Frick. Other than that, council doesn't hire employees. They only hire those three. The rest of the employees are underneath the city manager. And you can see this org chart changes all the time as the needs of the organizations change. So currently Harold has two assistant city managers underneath him, one over external services, one over shared services, which would be like internal services. Then also public safety, which is police, fire, and emergency operations. Community services, which is all the fun stuff, right? Golf and recreation and museum, library. And then also we have a deputy city manager who, if you've been a resident for a long time, you know is Dale Rademacher. Used to just be public works director. Now he oversees all of the utilities, broadband, power and communications, the electric part, and then public works and natural resources. So that in the big picture is the city's structure. In your books, you have org charts, I believe, for each of the big departments, so you can see how the city is organized. We also included for you on page 6, there is everybody's contact information for all of the city leadership. If you ever had a question, staff, leadership staff is very responsive. Happy to help you out if you have any questions. All right, moving on to the good stuff. Board members and board meetings. So the city has quite a few boards and commissions. We have 22 boards and commissions. Let me resize my screen here for you. Some of those are advisory boards. Some are quasi-judicial. Some are task forces. And I'm blanking on the last one because I'm not looking at my slide. Just a moment. Some are, advisory, quasi-judicial, and task forces. And each of those boards, generally speaking, has some regular members, alternate members, a staff liaison, and a secretary. On some boards, that's just one person, not two. And most boards have a council liaison. Not all, but most boards have a council liaison. So that the advisory boards are a critical component to the local government. Really, really help council guide council in all of the many decisions that need to be made about the broad breadth, that's a really good term, about the broad range of services and programs that the city offers. So your service as a board member is extremely critical, and that's why we're glad you're here tonight to help you get a better understanding of the big picture, and hopefully you've already had an orientation with your individual boards. Advisory boards, the bulk of our boards are advisory, and they really are just that, advisory in nature. They are delegated an area for which they're responsible, like the library or the museum, sustainability, those kinds of topics. And they really advise council and make recommendations regarding that service area in particular. We also have quasi-judicial boards, and we have 4, and planning and zoning is sometimes acts as a quasi-judicial board. So we have 5 quasi-judicial boards. Quasi-judicial boards, and I'll let Eugene, you just chime in whenever you like. But quasi-judicial boards are boards which have been delegated the decision-making authority that would be seated with council normally, but it's been delegated to a board to make these decisions. And they can be, or the decisions could be overturned by a court. So the big ones are, or the 5 boards are Board of Adjustment and Appeals, the Master Board of Appeals. We have 2 licensing authorities, a marijuana and a liquor licensing authority. And then, as I mentioned, we have the Planning and Zoning Commission. And in your book, you can read more about planning and zoning and how if you are on planning and zoning, I know you've already had your orientation and you've learned all the good things you need to know in order to be prepared for those. But you can read more about why, when, and in what circumstances planning and zoning is quasi-judicial. As I mentioned, there's also task forces. Task forces are sort of special focus, short term, not a long standing board, might be to solve a particular issue. One good example that came out of recent was the Climate Action Task Force, which was given a task to accomplish in a shorter period of time. That grew into a bigger project, and Sustainability Advisory Board is now taking over that, and some of those people have been incorporated. But that was one example of a task force that was convened to tackle a topic. So I want to take a moment to talk about the roles of people, the different members of the boards. So regular members and alternate members, not all boards do this the same. I know that Senior Citizen Advisory Board treats regular and alternate members the same. But generally speaking, a regular member is a voting member, and an alternate member is a member who would step in if there aren't enough members for a quorum on the board. They would be treated equally, trained equally, viewed equally, just not voting unless someone were missing. The staff liaison and the staff secretary will talk about their role, and In terms of the council liaison, if you watch council meetings, they've talked recently about trying to better define their role as council liaison. And they haven't made a decision on that as of yet, but generally speaking, their role is to be a connector, really just truly a liaison between the board and the council, and can have an ear to what are the things the board is talking about and needs, and can share that back to council when it's appropriate or relevant, and then can also share back to the board things happening at council, or if council has taken a particular position on something that's relevant to the conversation, those kinds of things. Really just a liaison, a link between council and boards and commissions. So let's take a moment and look at the role of the staff liaison and the secretary. So staff's job is to make your job easy. Really, that's our job. Our job is to put the meeting together, to prepare the agenda and the materials, get it all sent out in a timely fashion. Our job is to post the meeting to make sure that we are legal, we are complying with open meetings law, to have every arrangement set up. If we need a table and 16 chairs, that's staff's job to ensure that the meeting is ready to go. If it means it's a setting up of a Zoom meeting like we've done tonight, that would also be within our purview. Staff secretaries also take minutes for the meeting and bring those back for your approval. Staff also often reaches out to make sure a quorum is available before scheduling the meeting, just to make sure there aren't any problems with that. And really to just support you in everything that you might need so that you can effectively do your job. And lastly, and to not be forgotten, staff's job is to help you facilitate any accommodations that might be requested by the public in order for them to participate. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. What really the reason we're here tonight is to talk about your role as an advisory board member. And so in your book on page 22, there's a guide, I think it's called a guide, Golden Rules to Help You Become an Effective Member. And you're welcome to read through all those rules. I'm not going to go through all of them tonight. I've picked my favorites, and really like to kind of hone the topic of your role as advisory board member tonight towards a couple conversations. In general, the way it's pretty common sense how to be an effective board member. We would recommend that you understand the purpose of the board that you're on, that you read foundational documents if there's bylaws, that you would be familiar with those, or maybe read recent sets of minutes, or a master plan if there's a master plan related to the board you serve on. Those kinds of things, being familiar with the work and the charge of that board. Coming prepared to a meeting is very, very helpful for evident reasons. Attending all the meetings that you can. We certainly understand that life happens and you sometimes can't make a meeting. And in those cases, your secretary or liaison has probably shared with you what to do if you aren't able to attend, but just notifying us that you can't make it is certainly sufficient. We get it. And then establishing positive working relationships with other members on the board, as well as with staff. Learning how things work and how staff works can be very helpful, especially if you have questions. And another logistical recommendation we have, and this is a recommendation, is we would recommend that you set up a dedicated email for your service on the board instead of using a personal email where all of your emails go to. And there are a couple reasons for this. We think it'd be easier for you to sort through and find your, just open this. If I open my board email, I'll always have everything I need related to all of my board service. Additionally, we have in recent years had a couple open records requests. Nothing to be worried about or be concerned about, but if it were to happen, and it would be certainly rare, it'd be easier for you and for us to search. We'd ask you to search your email to find conversations relative to whatever it was that was being requested. I know in my personal email, I have like 7,000 emails from Best Buy and I don't know, everybody that wants me to buy something from them. It'd be a nightmare. It'd take me a while to search for it. So we just develop that recommendation, and you can operate however you personally choose. The city does not provide you an email address at this time, and that's because there's a licensing cost around every email that we provide. So at this time, we don't provide emails, so we don't dictate what that looks like. But wanted to give you a recommendation to help you be more successful. Mostly, what we find is really, really important about your job as an advisory board member is is the table you set when you appear at a board meeting or when you serve on a board. And we view you as ambassadors. You are here with us. You're now part of our team as city employees and public servants, representing the whole city, serving the whole city, and that's a really critical job. So we want to help you be prepared for that because, um, you know, public service can be a very interesting experience. There's some tips in your handout or in your manual. There are a few handouts about setting the table for civility. And that's really kind of where I'm going to talk now for a couple minutes. Um, I came across revivecivility.org a couple years ago and these handouts they provided. And I just thought it was fabulous and relevant to the work board members and elected officials do. So we've incorporated it into our manual. And some of the recommendations about civil engagement are to bring an open mind when you come to a board meeting, to treat everyone with respect and dignity, to remember that you represent the entire city, and to practice civil engagement. So, what is civil engagement? I think we all know the political discourse has gotten challenging, rough, abrasive, all kinds of things. And so civil engagement are sort of rules for engaging where we maybe agree to disagree is maybe a common way we hear that stated. But I want to just dig a little bit into what does that really mean? What are the ways we can really set ourselves up for success in civil engagement as ambassadors for the city of Longmont? And so here you have a few tips. One is have ground rules for respectful and civil discussions. We'll talk about a couple of ways to do that here in a moment. Another is listen to learn, or if any of you have ever done any of the Stephen Covey seminars, he calls it seek first to understand or active listening. Any of those manners, I think we are all probably guilty of forming our response as we listen to people. This listen to learn is a reminder to us to actually listen to what a person has to say. Practice civility with someone you trust. And by that we mean, or they mean, like you would practice for an interview, practice some of those questions. Maybe set a couple scenarios for yourself and engage with a trusted friend, spouse, coworker, whatever might be most appropriate for you, and practice maybe a difficult conversation. Maybe you know that somebody is going, maybe practice the scenario somebody makes an inappropriate comment at your board meeting. How are you going to respond? Just practicing that will make you a better responder in the moment. Also, plan ahead and think about how you want to be heard. Reminding yourself that there are different ways to make the points you want to make as you make your viewpoints heard as a board member on the board you're serving on. And just thinking about being thoughtful about that can also set the table for civility. And lastly, as I mentioned, is accept differences. We all know that there's a variety of opinions and a variety of ideas about how to make Longmont the best place. And the reason you are all on the boards is to sort of bring all those opinions together, vet them out, and make the best recommendation possible for Longmont to City Council. And so sometimes we do disagree, and we just have to work through that on the board. And so that's why I really liked revivecivility.org, and feel free to look through the handouts that are in your manual. They go into a little more detail than I have gone here. Also important is understanding what the public expects of you. And many of you may be familiar. Maybe you've come to speak to council before, or come to speak to the board you're on or another board. Doesn't even have to be a city of Longmont. And I think we all have sort of similar expectations about what that experience should be like. And as board members and as city staff, our job is to help create that, help fulfill that expectation. So you can see we believe that the public expects to be treated with politeness and respect. We believe that they have the expectation to have a chance to share their opinions, that they will be heard. They expect to be heard in a active listening kind of manner, and not to be personally attacked or criticized. And I know that none of us want to do that, want to attack anybody, but we have seen some kind of tough engagements, mostly directed, at council members or those kinds of things. And just being prepared for that. Again, if you have a plan, that can be very helpful. If you think that through, this is maybe a new role for you as a public servant and a representative of the city of Longmont. And just knowing that something you disagree with might come your way can be very, very helpful. And Francie at the end is going to give us some tools for a quick trick for how to handle some difficult conversations at the end. So I'm excited to see that. It's a new addition. The chair also has an important role, and this is not a training necessarily for chairpersons, but the chair's role is a critical one on a board in terms of the rules of engagement. And the chair has some extra responsibilities. So whoever you elect as chair, and if any of you are chair people, you're lucky. You have a little bit more of a job. The chair needs to manage the meeting and keep it orderly, keep things moving along, ensure that the agenda gets all the items on the agenda are discussed and addressed or managed as much as possible. Sometimes that isn't possible. The chair should also ensure that mutual respect is the foundation for all discussion and engagement, and manage verbal exchanges. When there are verbal exchanges, the chair should manage those. The chair should also adhere to meeting procedures, starting on time, ending on time. Whatever the rules of decorum are for your board, the chair should help manage those. And the chair should also ensure that anybody needing special accommodations gets those accommodations. So staff would be the one to help provide the accommodation. So if somebody needed a sign language interpreter, the chair it'd be important that the chair recognize that interpretation is needed and then lean on staff to help provide that accommodation. We do ask, generally we ask people who needing accommodation to contact us 24 hours prior to the meeting. That isn't always possible. It doesn't always happen. Things don't always get communicated appropriately. So if you see it and you see the need for it, please reach out to your liaison or secretary, whatever, your staff person in attendance, so that we can provide whatever accommodation might be necessary. Those are the chair's roles in very brief. One of the ways the chair can help manage difficult conversations is parliamentary procedure. And in your manual, we've provided 4 or 5 pages, page 28 to 31 or 32, goes into some detail about parliamentary procedure. I'm not going to belabor that with you tonight. Parliamentary procedure is a way to help manage a difficult conversation, and it's very effective. Also, I believe that most of your boards are just probably not that formal. Even city council doesn't operate that formally. They do not follow parliamentary procedure to a T. If you watch at all, sometimes the mayor will hone in on some refined parliamentary procedure if a conversation is particularly difficult, to help manage the conversation and move it forward. But they often do, the manual talks about like a friendly amendment, that friendly amendments don't truly exist. Council uses those all the time. So my main point to you about parliamentary procedure is it's the norms for each board are different, and I'd encourage you to follow the norm for your board. If it feels like more formality is needed in order to move the conversation forward, parliamentary procedure is a good tool to have in your pocketbook. Some basics here, very basics. Members should address the chair, not address each other back and forth on when you're in your meeting. Members should wait until they're recognized by the chair to speak. Wait until you have the floor, as they say. Generally, a motion is made, and once it's seconded, then it's open for discussion. If a motion isn't seconded, then it's not something the board apparently would like to discuss, and it dies, and that conversation ends. If you're following strict parliamentary procedure, each person on the board would have, no more than two chances to speak on each topic, and it would be up to the chair to manage that. That's a pretty strict rule. It takes a lot of management by the chair, so not required. Again, just so you have familiarity with parliamentary procedure. Chairs, it's helpful, very helpful, that chairs take care of the motions and the votes, that the chair restate the motion so everybody's clear what's being voted on. So chairs have to listen really carefully and often take notes. You'll often see the mayor taking notes. Chairs should verbalize results of votes so that the public and everybody around is aware if a motion, if it passed or if it failed, and then who voted against it if somebody voted against it. And then lastly, the chair should ensure that motion protocol is followed, meaning there shouldn't be more than one motion on a table at a time, with a couple of exceptions. That's up to the chair to sort of manage that ebb and flow of conversation. And let's see, most motions require a second. They should either be acted on, meaning voted upon, or withdrawn. So a motion that just sits there, that's just not proper. Got to do something with a motion. Most of them are passed by a majority vote, and a tied vote is a failed vote. So if there's a tie, if for some reason a board normally has 7 members, but only 6 were able to be there one night, and something was voted on 3-3, that would fail. That item would fail, because a tie in parliamentary procedure is a fail. And really, most importantly, we'd look to your board that you sit on for the level of formality that is common, that is used. Most commonly, I think, in my experience on a board, the topic is on the agenda, the chair introduces the topic, there's some discussion, and then after some discussion, it kind of whittles down. It's pretty clear there's a decision that the board is ready to make a decision, and then a motion is made and seconded, a chance for a little more debate, and then a vote, and then that topic is over. That's the more common flow of how motions and votes go on a board. But you would lean to your board's norms and rules for that. So like I said, in your manual, there's more information on parliamentary procedure. We have actual manuals of parliamentary procedure in our office. If for some reason you needed a copy, we have copies. We also have these great little pamphlets. I kind of call it Parliamentary Procedure for Dummies, but that's not its title. But it's a very simple little pamphlet that breaks it down into very understandable bites. And I'd be happy to send one to you if anybody wanted one of those as well. So in terms of the big picture, really what we hope you gain from tonight's presentation is the importance of your role as an advisory board member, and your importance in helping set the stage for civil engagement, so that residents can engage with boards in the city and make Longmont the best possible place we can be.